Hey, it's 4.1. Welcome to Semester 2 and Unit 4, Modern Poetry. Our objective is students will be able to list the main units of Semester 2 and explain what Paper 1, the Guided Literary Analysis, is. Let's go. Semester 1, we focused on creating new narratives, and I wanted you to be thinking about the power of creating a new narrative and claiming your own history and identity. And we did that first by you actually writing your story for the college application essay. And then we read two stories written by the individuals who experienced the circumstances. And I wanted you to look at these questions. How does a story change when it is told by an individual who's been historically silenced? How can telling a story be a form of empowerment or even activism? And what will it take for our country to overcome its past trauma? So that's what we dealt with first semester, and there were some really tough discussions. I told you guys about courageous conversations, protocol, and I thank you for spending all of that time looking at these really tough topics. For semester 2, we are moving on to something a little bit different. Our main overarching theme is formalism, the music not understood at first hearing. Now, this comes from a quote by Soviet composer Sergei Prokofiev, who was making music during Stalin's Soviet state and made this quote in 1947. He later retracted it to avoid going to a labor camp because it was a very political thing for him to be saying during the time period in Russia, of course, or in the Soviet state. Their musicians and writers were being stifled, and they were expected to only write propaganda that was going to make the Soviet state look better and was not going to encourage independent thought. And so this was a really political thing for him to say. But what I am interested in is this idea that music is playing and we're hearing it, but we don't fully understand it. It's a really good way to explain formalism. Formalism is finding meaning through patterns and structures. And so sometimes it takes us to dig a little bit deeper to find meaning in text with formalism. Formalism officially is a literary theory. It's a type of literary criticism that focuses on the structural purposes of a particular text. It's the study of a text without the influence of outside things like culture and history and what the author's intention was. All of those things are ignored when we look at the formalist literary theory. And in one sense, that's sort of annoying because nothing exists in a vacuum, right? We know that literature is affected by outside influences. At the same time, though, it's freeing because you are invited to explore the meaning in the page, and you don't have to research anything. In fact, researching is frowned upon when it comes to formalism. We are going to dig deep into the text, those words on the page or screen, and avoid outside stuff for semester 2. All right, so formalism, the music not understood at first hearing, asks these kinds of questions, and these are the questions I want to guide us this semester. How does form and structure mirror content in texts? How can patterns in language inform meaning? How can literary art become a safe haven from the chaos and confusion of the world? Here are the semester 2 units. We're going to start with unit 4, Modern Poetry, a momentary stay from confusion. This comes from a quote from Robert Frost, the American poet. We will be reading some of his poems. And then we're going to move on to unit 5, Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Originally, I really wanted us to read August Wilson's Fences, and unfortunately, time just does not allow for us to read it. I don't think I can do that great text justice, but I want to give a shout out to August Wilson, one of the greatest American playwrights. He spent much of his life working here in the Twin Cities, and when you go to the Guthrie, you'll see his face outside of the Guthrie on a mural, because he is a kind of a Minneapolis hero, and as I already said, one of the greatest playwrights. We're going to instead study a Greek tragedy, and it's just going to give us a little more time, and that's how it is. Unit 6, practicing the guided literary analysis. We will do a mock paper 1 essay in this unit so that we are completely ready for that essay when it comes in May. Unit 7 is a book club, and you're going to do this after the exam, and this is a different unit because it's not going to be preparing you for any exams. It's going to just be about reading a book with class members for fun. So it involves a lot of choice. You get to choose your book of 4. They're listed in the semester 2 syllabus, by the way, if you want to look at those already. And you get to choose who you're working with. There's going to be some group work involved. And then you also get to choose your summative assessment for Unit 7. Guided literary analysis, what is this? This is our next summative assessment, our last IB assessment. So we got to understand what a guided literary analysis is. So this is our first introduction to it. First of all, it is part of your score, your IB score. And if you can tell from the chart, it's a large part of your score, right? You've completed half of your score already. You did the internal assessment last year, and it's also known as the oral presentation. And then you just completed your higher level essay first semester. We will upload that onto the IBO site on February 15th this year. And the last part of your IB score is the paper 1 guided literary analysis. And this is different than the other assessments because it is timed. It is an exam. And you'll have 2 hours and 15 minutes to do it. We already know the date for it. It's May 4th at 12:30 p.m. and we're going to do this over at House of Hope Church. Here's what IB says that it is. It contains 2 previously unseen literary passages, and students are instructed to write a separate guided analysis of each of these passages. A guided analysis in this context refers to an exploration of the passage, supported by a guiding question, which asks students to consider a technical or formal aspect of this passage. Here's where we see formalism take shape, right? Formal aspect. The passages could be taken from any of the 4 literary forms or genres on the prescribed reading list: drama, poetry, prose nonfiction, prose fiction. Which one have we been working on this year? 3, prose nonfiction. It's the only one we've been working on. So we have to, this semester, come back to the other 3, and we're going to start with poetry. The passages for analysis may either be a complete piece of writing or an extract from a longer piece, and wherever possible, they will not have been written by authors listed on the prescribed reading list or taken from works likely to have been studied in class. They want you to have never seen the texts before that you're going to be writing on, because that ensures an equal playing field. Everyone will come to the test on the same level, and everyone will use just the text on the page to make sense of the literature. One guiding question will be provided for each passage on a central technical or formal element. And you don't have to write on that, but if you don't, you better find one that's just as good, and that's hard to do. It's graded with 4 criteria, or by 4 criteria, and these are going to look very similar to the higher level essay: understanding and interpretation, analysis and evaluation, focus and organization, and language. All right, welcome to semester 2. The guided literary analysis awaits.